Hello guys, welcome to another video of English No Big Deal. My name is David.
And I'm Maddie.
So we just released conversation 14 about eye problems a few days ago. And now it's time for us to make another video to teach you guys about 15 most important phrases of that conversation. So same as any of the previous pronunciation teaching videos, we're gonna go over 15 phrases, but most importantly, we're gonna talk about how to pronounce them correctly. At the same time, we're gonna give you guys some of the ideas of how to use them. Also, we're gonna give you guys some examples at the end so you can practice along. So now we have to understand what the conversation is all about. And in order to do that, we have to ask Maddie. So what is conversation 14 all about, Maddie?
Conversation 14 is all about eye problems and words and phrases typically used when you talk about things to do with your eyes or even going to a vision clinic. These words are really nice to know, again, because they are quite versatile and used in many different situations, not just with eye problems. So be sure to pay attention, practice along, and take notes because these phrases are really good. Now let's get started. Number 1, you've been doing something even after doing something or you did something.
Hey, are you okay?
Yeah, why'd you ask?
You've been rubbing your eyes a lot lately. Is it because you're tired or is it getting harder to see the screen?
Now that I think about it, it's actually been harder for me to see my computer screen. But I thought just because my eyes needed a break.
I think you should go see an optometrist and get your eyes checked. You've been squinting even after you come back from the lunch break.
Now, the first pronunciation point you need to keep in mind is upon the word you've. You've. Don't change that v to a f. Don't say you've. You've. Not correct. You've. You've. And the next one is the connecting between even and after. You bring that n over to after. Even after. Nafter. Even after. And the very last one is the word after. Make sure that f is clear. After. Don't say after. Don't make that p sound. So after. After. Even after.
So you use this expression to talk about that there's an event or a situation, especially a bad one, that you want to stop. And you did something in order to prevent it from happening, but it didn't really stop it. So it still continues regardless of what you did, or no matter what you did, or even after you did something. Now, let me refer back to the conversation to give you guys a much better understanding of how to use this expression. So in the conversation, Maddie said, you've been squinting your eyes even after you've come back from lunch break. So what is the bad situation or what is the unexpected event that David wanted to stop here? And that was, he's been squinting his eyes, right? And maybe David believed that if he went on a lunch break, then he didn't have to squint his eye just as much as he did before. But Maddie pointed out that he did the same thing, that he's been squinting his eyes even after he's come back from the lunch break. Now, going on to the examples, the first one I have is, she's been failing the class even after having a tutor for herself. So what is the bad event? What is the unexpected event or situation that she wanted to stop from happening?
She wanted to stop failing her class.
And what did she do to try to stop it?
She got herself a tutor.
Exactly. So she thought maybe hiring or having a tutor would probably help her succeed in that class or to pass that class, but it didn't happen as expected.
And the next example, I'm still having a headache even after taking the medicine the doctor gave me. So in this case, the headache is continuing. And the thing that I did to try and stop it was taking the medicine that the doctor gave me. But in this case, it didn't work. And so that is why I'm structuring the sentence the way it is. So I'm still having a headache even after taking the medicine the doctor gave me.
And number 2, a wives' tale.
You know you'll ruin your eyes if you stare at the screen so long, right?
Oh, trust me, I know it isn't just a wives' tale at all. But since I've got to work on my computer a lot lately, I basically have no choice. Before I talk about this phrase's pronunciation, I would like to correct myself on the type of mistake I made in the captions of the conversation video. So as you can see on the screen right now, so the first one is the wrong one that was in the conversation, in the captions that I made, and that was wrong. So please make sure that you go with the second one. So now moving on to this phrase's pronunciation, there are 2 points that you should keep in mind. The first point is upon the V sound, just right after the word wife, and then Z, wives, wives. So make sure you have the V sound right there by having the right movement and position for your lips. And also, after the V sound, you have the Z sound. So make sure you do this. Wives, 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 right? And then the second point is upon the A sound of the word tail, tail. Because if you're not careful when pronouncing the A sound of this word, it's gonna be tail, tail. And when you tell something to somebody, that means you're talking about that with them and is not related to this word. So make sure your pronunciation for both of these words is different. So the A sound in tail, make sure you say te, te, and then o for the L sound at the end. And you'll have tail, tail, tail. As opposed to you go directly into te, 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 and then the L sound when you say the word tail. So keep in mind the difference. Now listen to the way that I pronounce both of these words. The first one is tail, tail. The second one is tell, tell. Hear the difference? If you can hear the difference, I guarantee that you can practice on your own for both of these words.
Now for the usage of this idiom, this is used when talking about an old idea or an old belief, a belief that is now outdated, and most people know now that it is not true. And these beliefs or ideas are outdated because now they are not backed by science. Maybe science now proves these beliefs to be wrong. In the conversation, David said, "Oh, trust me, I know it's not a wives' tale at all," referring to the fact that staring at the screen for so long will ruin your eyes. Science has now proven that if you stare at the screen for so long, your eyesight will start getting bad. So that's why he said, "Oh, trust me, I know it's not a wives' tale at all." Another popular wives' tale is chewing gum can sit in your stomach for 7 years. I remember as a child I heard this a lot, and now I know that that is just a wives' tale. It is not true. Now that the idiom is clear, let's give you some examples. First example being, I used to believe my grandmother when she said that coffee stunts your growth, but now I know that that's just a wives' tale. It is not true that coffee stunts your growth. Science has proven that even if you're drinking a lot of coffee, it's not gonna keep you from growing.
I don't know if this wives' tale is proven to be wrong scientifically, but from my experience, when I went to university or college here in Canada, I saw a lot of teenagers or I saw a lot of high schoolers or even college students drinking a lot of coffee throughout their day just to try to be able to focus on their work or on their project and throughout their day. And if that wives' tale is ever true, then I believe that they're all short and small. But what I saw with my own eyes was totally opposite. That's why I have another example for you guys. Don't ever believe in wives' tales because they're not scientifically proven to be right.
That's why they're called a wives' tale now, because people already know that that idea or that thing is outdated and now it's most likely not true. And so that's why you shouldn't always believe a wives' tale.
Now that we have Google, very famous right now, why don't you just go on Google or go on some big search engines in order to search if that information is right? Or you should probably take some other people's advice with a grain of salt, especially when something appears or seems to be very similar to a wives' tale.
Number 3, to block something from something or to block something from doing something.
Along with that, I've been using these glasses to help me see better and also block all the blue light from the screen. I think I'll just use some eye drops later when I get home.
The only pronunciation point you need to be aware of is upon the k sound in block. Do not drop this k sound. Don't say blah, blah. It'll sound very odd. So there are 2 things that you can do. You can either pronounce the K sound distinctly, or you can stop the K sound. So I'll do both now. Block, block, block. And I'll stop the K sound. Blah, blah. Notice I'm not saying blah, blah. Not correct. Blah, blah.
Now, block means prevent or stop or get in the way of somebody or something in order to prevent that person from doing something or in order to prevent that something from happening. When using this phrase, you need to make sure that you use the preposition from with it. Now, going back to the conversation, David said the pair of glasses he's been wearing could block all the blue light from the screen. And what it means is he believed that his glasses will help him prevent all the blue lights from damaging or tiring his eyes. So it's the same with the next example that I'm about to give you. The sunscreen blocks all the UV light from damaging your skin.
That's why a lot of people today know to wear sunscreen, making sure that if they want their skin to stay nice and beautiful, they have to wear sunscreen. Otherwise, if they're getting too much sun, maybe they'll start getting wrinkles early or even dark spots. So you wear sunscreen to prevent the UV light from damaging your skin.
One immediate effect if you don't wear sunscreen when it is really sunny outside is that it's gonna give you some sunburn and nobody wants to struggle with the pain of the sunburn. That's why you need to wear the sunscreen. But that is just one light immediate effect of not wearing sunscreen, right? Another critical condition is that you can get skin cancer if you get your skin exposed to the UV light too much. So that's why the sunscreen is gonna block all the UV light from the sunlight. And in general, it's gonna protect your skin from being damaged by the UV light from the sunlight.
One last example, the antivirus software on my computer blocks it from getting any viruses. So people know now that they have to get antivirus protection to prevent or avoid getting any viruses on their computer.
The main function of an antivirus software is to disinfect all the viruses in your computer, so it's generally blocking or preventing your computer from getting infected or affected by the viruses. Number 4, it wouldn't hurt to do something.
You know, eye drops are just for the dryness of your eyes and not their fatigue. It wouldn't hurt to go in and get them checked to make sure that nothing's wrong.
Now, the pronunciation for this phrase is very simple. And the first point is upon the word wouldn't. So I remember that I talked about this word in some of the previous pronunciation teaching videos. So the main focus now we have is upon the T sound at the end of the word wouldn't. So you only have to stop the T sound right there. And if you can do it, it's going to be like this. Wouldn't. You don't say wouldn't. wouldn't. Okay? It's gonna be wouldn't. And if you can stop the T sound at the end of this word, then for the next word in this phrase, you can also do the same thing. So, hurt. But you don't want to say it that way. You would want to stop the T sound, so it's gonna be hurt. And the whole phrase, when you say it all together, is gonna sound so smooth and native. So it wouldn't hurt to do something. It wouldn't hurt to do something. You don't say it wouldn't hurt to do something, because it's gonna be more effort and time that you have to put in order to say this whole phrase that way.
Not only that, it would also sound very odd to say it that way as well. Native speakers might make the same face that I just did, like, huh? Did you really say it that way?
Mm-hmm.
Now that you know how to pronounce this phrase properly, let's go on how to use it. You use this phrase when you are advising somebody and telling them that they should do something, but you're not being as direct. So when you say it wouldn't hurt to do something, then you're telling them that it might be a good idea to do it. It could even solve the problem that you're having. In the conversation, I told David it wouldn't hurt to go in and get your eyes checked. Let's say he didn't do it and there was something really wrong with his eyes. Maybe he would have caused more damage if he did not go in and get them checked. And I knew it would be beneficial. There would be no bad outcome if he went in and got them checked. So I said it wouldn't hurt to go in and get them checked. All in all, this phrase is good when talking about something small that has a great impact on the overall outcome. Just like with the next example I'm about to make. It wouldn't hurt to go see the dentist for your annual checkup. So if your teeth are starting to hurt, maybe you think you have some cavities, it's a good idea to go and see the dentist so they can fix the problem now rather than having to fix a big problem later. Because we all know if we let a cavity get any worse, then we might have to pull out the entire tooth.
And the next example is, it wouldn't hurt to be kind to everybody, because they might help you when you're in trouble. Such a small act as being kind to everybody, and it's gonna have such a great impact on your life. It's gonna be really positive, because when you're in trouble, when you have problems or difficulties, the people that you've been so nice or kind to will help you. That's why it wouldn't hurt to be kind to everybody. Number 5, prescribe, prescribed, and prescription.
It wouldn't hurt to go in and get them checked to make sure that nothing's wrong. Plus, I think it's time that you get a new pair of glasses prescribed too.
The pronunciation for these words can be a little difficult, especially when you didn't know these words or you didn't use these words before. So for the first one, prescribe. So as Maddie already told you guys in the previous pronunciation teaching video for the pronunciation on the R sound. So the easiest way is to stick your lower lip up and forward a little bit, just like this. And then you withdraw your lip back to its position and roll your tongue within your mouth in order to make the R sound, right? R, or run, or ran, something like that. But now it's a little bit more complicated when it has the P sound in front. So you gotta do it first. Still stick your lip, especially the lower one, up and forward. But then at the same time, make the P sound and the R sound and get the right movements for it. So the P sound is going to be correct and very clear. Notice that I use a little bit of the compartment that's just right between my teeth when they are put together and my lips in order to contain some air. And when I release the air out of that compartment, then I withdraw my lip back to its position to make the R sound. So, and And the reason that this one is very important for you guys to clearly pronounce is because if you don't do it that way, it can be difficult and you can mispronounce it as the brr sound. bruh sound, the B sound, not the P sound anymore. Alright? So that's the first point on this word. And the second point on this word is the ending B sound. So when you first start practicing with this word, try to make the B sound enunciated and loud and clear as much as possible. And when you are really good at it, you can stop the B sound because the P and the B sound is also one of the pairs, one of the three pairs in English, especially North American English, that you can turn them from their consonants and the way that you normally pronounce them into a stop sound. And once again, try to practice saying it out loud. Prescribe. 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 After a while of pronouncing this word and you're getting really good at it and you can stop it like this. Prescribe. Prescribe. Just like that. Make the little sound for the B sound. So you have prescribe. Prescribe. Just like that. And the next version of it is when it is used in a passive voice. So you have prescribed. Prescribed. So just because the B sound is a voice consonant, that's why it determines how you pronounce the ED part that's coming after. So the ED part in this situation is pronounced or supposed to be pronounced as a D sound. So bd, bd. So prescribed, bd, prescribed. And you should follow the same rule. At the beginning, try to pronounce these sounds correctly and clearly. Bd, bd. When you get really good at it, you can make them stop by saying prescribed, prescribed, something like that. And the last word is prescription. Prescription is just a noun form. And I believe that if you can make really good pronunciation for the first two versions, then for the last one, it's going to be a lot easier.
Now, as David already mentioned, prescribe is the verb form and prescription is the noun form. And if you are prescribed something or you get a prescription for something, that means that after examining you, the doctor has determined what type of medicine you need, how much you need, or the type of treatment you need. Now, keep in mind, when you are prescribed a medicine, it is different from over-the-counter medicine. So over-the-counter medicine is something that you can just buy right off the shelves and you don't need a prescription. For example, Tylenol is an over-the-counter medicine. But now let's say you need something a bit stronger, maybe something to help with a very high fever, and you cannot find that one on the shelf. That means you would have to go to a doctor and get a prescription for that medication. And that is the only way that you can get that medication. Now, in the conversation, we were talking about glasses, and you need to get your lenses or glasses prescribed to you because you don't just walk into any store, pull some glasses off the shelf and be like, these ones work the best. No, that cannot happen. You have to get your lenses prescribed to you to make sure that they are correct. Now, for the first example, antibiotics are prescribed to those with a bacterial infection. So that means after looking at you, the doctor determined or saw that you have a bacterial infection. And the only way to fix it is to prescribe you antibiotics. You cannot buy antibiotics over the counter anymore. You can't buy them off the shelves. You have to get a prescription for them. Now, to use this in a passive voice, antibiotics are prescribed to those with a bacterial infection.
In that example, your problem is about the bacterial infection. Now, let's see what kind of problem I have in the next one. I was prescribed massage therapy to help with my back pain.
Now, the reason you might get a prescription for massage therapy is because maybe your insurance will cover the cost for the therapy. So you need to have a written prescription from the doctor to submit to your insurance to have them pay for it. Number 6, procedure.
Honestly, I've never done that before here in Canada because my last eye exam was done in Vietnam. So I'll probably do it sometime next week. But before I do it, I would like to ask you a little bit about the procedures and all the stuff that I need to know in advance.
Now, for this word, the first thing you need to keep in mind is the long E sound, procedure. Don't say procedure. Don't change the long E to the short E. And the second pronunciation point, the voiced CH sound, procedure, procedure. Do not read it how it is written. Don't say procedure, even though it's written with the letter D here. We don't pronounce it the same way. We say procedure, that voiced CH sound, procedure.
You use this word to talk about a way of doing something in a particular order. So going back to the conversation, we had the procedure of an eye exam or for an eye exam. That means there are specific steps that the doctor has to follow in order to be successful to perform an eye exam for you. Most of the time, when it comes to medical procedures, it also means that it's medical operations. So medical procedures mean medical operations. And this word can also be used in business settings as well. So in companies or organizations, they do have a lot of procedures that show the step-by-step instructions for their employees to know how to deal with some circumstances. Let's say you're working in a company and you have to sign a contract with your client a lot. And all you have to do is to follow the procedure that the company has for you in order to sign that contract with the client. Now, keep in mind, if there's a procedure of doing something, that means that you have to follow the exact same steps or the exact same order, and you cannot do it out of order. You can't do it your way or some other way around. And you can't mix up the steps either. For example, step 1, you meet up with the client. Step 2, you introduce the product or the service you're offering to the client. Step 3, you ask them if they agree on getting your service or buying your product. And step 4, you close the deal. So those are the step-by-step of how to sign a contract with your client or how to offer a product to your client.
There is no possible way to do these steps out of order. You can't have the customer sign the contract first and then go over the product or services with them. So that is why you have to follow the procedure. There are certain steps you have to take. For you to understand this word, let's give you some examples. The first one is, Korea is very famous for cosmetic procedures. The reason might be because 20% of the women in Korea have already undergone some sort of cosmetic procedure. Now, cosmetic procedures is just another way to say plastic surgery.
And the second example is, when reporting an accident at work, you have to follow the company's procedure. That means when you see or when you witness an accident, you want to report it to your boss or you want to report it to your superior, you have to follow the step-by-step instruction of how to do it. Maybe step 1, make sure that the one that's in the accident is okay, is not seriously damaged or seriously injured, right? Otherwise, you have to do step 2, call the emergency services line like 911 in North America. And then step 3, you have to call your boss immediately to let him know or let her know what just happened, right? And those are the steps and those are the procedures to report an accident at work. Number 7, in advance. But before I do it, I would like to ask you a little bit about the procedures and all the stuff that I need to know in advance. So what are they going to do specifically with my eyes? Do you know? The first pronunciation point for this phrase is about the connection between the word in and advance. In ends with a consonant N sound, and advance starts with a vowel sound. That's why you can link it here. You take the N sound over to you have in advance. And the next pronunciation point you need to be aware of is the D sound. In this particular situation, you don't want to say advance, but you want to make the D sound here a stop D sound. So you say advance, advance. Notice the way that I stopped D sound. So I have a little bit of a sound in my throat in order to make that stop D sound impeccable. So advance, advance. The whole phrase is gonna be in advance, in advance, in advance.
Now, this phrase is used to talk about the time before something happens or the time before an event happens. And the reason you're talking about it is so that you are prepared or ready for that thing to happen. So, let's say you're preparing for a test. You would say, I prepare for my test in advance. You are doing it before the test happens. You're not doing it during the test. You can't prepare during the test. You prepare in advance, and then you are ready to take the test. Going back to the conversation, David asked Maddie all the stuff he needs to prepare in advance for the eye exam. Maybe he might have to gather some extra documents or know his current prescription for his lenses. And so maybe if Maddie knew it, she could let him know. So he is prepared in advance for the eye exam. The first example, I had a lot of things to prepare in advance for the wedding. I had to maybe get the flowers ready, have my dress picked out, make sure that we hired caterers, so on and so forth. You can't plan the day of the wedding. Everybody knows that that is next to impossible. So you have to prepare in advance for the wedding.
And the second example is learning about the place in advance will help you when traveling. Maybe you want to learn in advance about the place's people and how nice all of those people are and what kind of attractions that place has so you know where to go. Or if the place you want to travel to is in a foreign country, then you would like to learn something like their language or their culture in advance so you can actually enjoy your trip while being there.
Number 8, optometry, optometrist, and optician.
Basically, when you go in, the optometrist will run you through an eye exam upon which they'll gather information about your eye's condition.
Now, there isn't any special pronunciation for these words, but I would like you to concentrate on all of the sounds and practice along with me. Optometry, 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 optometrist, optometrist, optometrist. And the last one, optician, optician, optician. Now, notice how no matter how fast I said these words, I clearly pronounced all of the sounds. Optometry, optometrist, and optician. All of those sounds are very clear and round.
Optometry is the job of checking people's eyes in order to examine their eye's condition. An optometrist is an eye doctor. An optician means the same thing, is another way to call an eye doctor. So make sure you understand an eye doctor, an optometrist, or an optician, they are the same thing. And in the conversation, we mentioned an optometry center is the place you should go to get your eyes checked by an optometrist. And then after the whole procedure is done and after you picked out your frames, then a dispensing optician will assemble your eyeglasses. Now, let me give you the first example. My optician told me that my eyes are getting much better compared to the last time he checked. Now, I use the word optician, but in your examples or if you create your own sentence, you can also substitute the word optician for optometrist and eye doctor.
The second example, on some occasions, optometrists can perform eye procedures in their optometry centers. So that just means that the optometrist is trained in performing some certain eye surgeries or eye care in their own centers.
Number 9, to run somebody through something.
Basically, when you go in, the optometrist will run you through an eye exam upon which they'll gather information about your eye's condition.
Now, there are two pronunciation points for this particular phrase. The first one is upon the word run. And just like I talked earlier about how to pronounce the R sound when it is in front of a word. So you say run. Stick your lip, especially the lower lip, up and forward and withdraw it when you say it. And roll your tongue in your mouth to enunciate the R sound very clearly. So run. And the second point is upon the word through. Through. So through, it has the first consonant as a voiceless TH sound. So that's why you have to push a little bit of air out of your mouth to say through, through, through. To run somebody through something. To run somebody through something.
Now, when you run somebody through something, that means you're telling them what to do step by step. Or you tell them what will happen every step of the way. Going back to the conversation, when you go to the optometrist, they'll run you through a basic eye exam. And that just means that the optometrist or optician will tell you exactly what you need to do every single step for the exam. If they don't tell you anything, you're going to be confused, not sure what to do. So that is why they run you through the eye exam. They tell you what happens every step of the way. One last point, you can substitute the word run with walk and it'll still mean the exact same thing. Now let me give you an example so this phrase makes a little bit more sense. The teacher ran me through how to complete the project. Maybe if I didn't have that step-by-step instruction from the teacher, I would have no idea what I was doing. And so she ran me through it. She told me step by step what I needed to do to complete the project.
And the second example that I have for this phrase is a tutorial video on YouTube will walk you through a step-by-step of how to build a website on your own. That means that tutorial video will show you the step-by-step. And by following the step-by-step instructions from that video, you'll know how to make the website on your own.
Number 10, involve.
I remember the last time I checked online and it said that this test involves a bunch of different tests. So I'm not sure exactly what they'll do.
Even though there's only one word, there are quite a few pronunciation points we have to remember. The first one being the ah sound. Involve. Involve. That ah has to be really round and clear. Involve. The next one are upon the v sounds. Make sure that every v sound is pronounced clearly and accurately. Do not say involve. Involve. Not correct. Involve. Involve. And the very last point is the O sound. Be sure to stick your tongue up to the top of your mouth. Involve. Involve.
If a situation, an event, or a process involves something, that means that something is a necessary part of that event. So going back to the conversation, Maddie said, the eye exam involves a bunch of different tests. That means that these small tests are necessary parts of this whole general eye exam. Now, the passive voice of the word involve is also commonly used in day-to-day conversations by native speakers as well. So with these small tests being necessary parts of this whole general eye exam, you can say, these small tests are involved in this whole general eye exam. Now, in order for this word to make more sense, let me give you the first example. The project involves a total of 5 people in my company. And as I just told you how to use this passive voice earlier, you can turn this sentence into its passive voice saying, 5 people in my company are involved in this project.
Second example, if you're involved in any criminal activity, it can be hard to get a job. And that just means if you were a part or joining in any criminal activity, then it would be hard for people to hire you because a lot of people or a lot of businesses don't want anybody who was involved in criminal activity.
Number 11. To assemble something.
But they may dilate your pupils, and after that, they'll give you a prescription for your eyeglasses or contact lenses.
And then I can take that prescription to a dispensing optician to assemble frames and lenses for my glasses. For the pronunciation on the word assemble, all you need to be aware of is the S sound that starts the second syllable of the word. So you say assemble, you don't say assemble. So make sure you don't turn the S sound into a Z sound and say assemble, because it has to be assemble. And then the last one is the L or the ending L sound. So stick your tongue up and do exactly the same way that Maddie has told you guys earlier to pronounce the L sound. So assemble, assemble, assemble. Alright?
When you assemble something, all that means is you bring all of the separate parts or different parts together to make something whole. You can assemble toys, you can assemble furniture, and you can assemble a team. Yes, you can use this word with people as well. Going back to the conversation, the dispensing optician will assemble the lenses and frames for your glasses. So he takes the two separate parts, the frames and the lenses, and he puts them together to make this thing whole, to make it work. Let me give you the first example. A lot of people say it is hard to assemble furniture from IKEA. I know this personally because I had a difficult time trying to assemble my bookshelf. It took me a little bit of work and looking around to find all of the separate parts and bring it all together to make the bookshelf.
And the second example is the boss assembled a meeting this morning due to an emergency. Like Maddie said earlier, that you can use this one for people as well. So if the boss assembled a meeting, that means he gathered a lot of people in order for that meeting to happen, because there was an emergency and he wanted to talk about that.
Number 12, as long as and so long as.
In many vision clinics or optometry centers, they have their own dispensary to do that for you as long as you pick out the frames you want.
Now, the pronunciation for both of these is upon the word as. Make sure that that a sound is really clear. Don't say a. It is not correct if you say A's. No. As, like the a as in apple. As long as, so long as.
Now these phrases mean only if in conditional sentences. So going back to the conversation, Maddie said the optometry center will have their own dispensary to assemble your glasses for you as long as you pick out the frames you want. Now within this particular sentence, you can substitute as long as for only if. Alright? But my question right here is, can they assemble your glasses if you didn't pick out the frames? Probably not, right? So you have to pick out the frames first before getting your eyeglasses assembled. So it has to happen, otherwise it won't happen. And let us give you guys some more examples so you can practice more with this phrase. The first one I have is, you can learn English as long as you put in the time and effort to practice it every day. That means what? You have to practice and you have to put in the time and the effort to practice English every day. And that has to happen. And as long as you can meet the requirement here, then you can actually speak English fluently, or you can learn English as effectively as you want.
If you don't do those two things, then there is no way that the first thing will happen. You cannot learn English if you don't practice and put forth the effort to learn every day. The second example, in the US, as long as you are 16 years or older, you can get a driver's license. So that is the condition. If you are under 16 years old, you will not get your driver's license. Not at all. You have to be over 16 years old. And if you meet that requirement, then you can get your license.
Number 13. To have something going on.
Another amazing thing about these places is they have deals going on, like buy one, get one free, something like that.
Now, the only pronunciation point you should be aware of for this particular phrase is between the word going and on. And I'm talking about the connection right there. So you drop the g sound at the end of the word going, and then the word going now only has the n sound at the end, and you link it to on. You have going on. So to have something going on, have something going on, have something going on.
Going on in this way means happening. And if you have something going on, that means it is happening right now. Going back to the conversation, they'll have a lot of deals going on. And that just means that they will have a lot of deals happening right now, happening currently. Because this phrase is pretty simple, let's give you some examples so it makes more sense. First example, sorry for not calling you. I had a lot going on at work today. All that means is I had so much work to do that I had no time to call you. And that just means at work, a lot was happening. I had a lot going on. So I had no time to make a phone call.
And I think it's just like the next example that I'm about to make. That convenience store seems small, but they always have a lot of business going on. That means it's small physically, but there are a lot of customers going in and out of that convenience store. So they have a lot of business going on. They have a lot of business happening every single day, even though it looks so small.
Number 14, the more I know and the more you know.
That sounds absolutely amazing. The last time I got my eyes checked in Vietnam, they told me that I was nearsighted. And these glasses are actually 1.7 diopters.
Oh, that's the unit of measurement for glasses? The more I know, because I typically just say that my prescription is 1.75 or 2.
Now these phrases are pretty easy to pronounce, so shadow along with me as I say them. The first one, the more I know. The more I know. The more I know. The more I know. The second one, the more you know. The more you know. The more you know.
These expressions are the same, and you can use them interchangeably to say when you learn something new or you learn something that you didn't know before. So when saying this phrase to somebody just because they just told you something you didn't know, you're basically honestly admitting that you didn't know it. And so you want to emphasize the fact that you will remember it or try to remember it for the next time. Let me give you the first example. Excessive repetition won't work, but spaced repetition does when learning vocabulary. The more you know.
So you just learned that spaced repetition is the best way to learn vocabulary, and you're expressing the fact that you will remember this for later. The second example, when ironing a button-up shirt, do it inside out. It makes it easier. The more you know.
Exactly, because even me, I didn't know that before. But now I know that trick to iron my button-up shirt properly. I would probably try to remember it. And so I say, the more I know, or the more you know. Number 15, nearsighted, nearsightedness. Far-sighted, far-sightedness.
And in general, there are 4 typical eye conditions. Farsightedness and nearsightedness are just 2 of them.
The pronunciation for these words is pretty simple, but you need to practice them a lot in order to get them right because these words are pretty long. And the only pronunciation point you should be aware of is the T at the end of the second part of the word, sight, sight, the T right there in each and every single one of them. So you turn the T sound into the D sound here. You don't say nearsighted or farsighted or nearsightedness. You don't say it like that, but you turn it into the flat D sound, and so it's gonna sound a lot more like a native speaker in North America. So you say nearsighted, farsighted, and nearsightedness, farsightedness.
Now, if somebody is nearsighted or short-sighted, that means that they cannot see things that are far away very well. It might look blurry to them, but they can clearly see things that are close by, maybe close to their eyes. And farsighted is the exact opposite. That means they can see things that are at a distance, but they might not be able to see things clearly when it's closer to their face. One example, it might be difficult for you to read a book if you're farsighted. So you might have to get corrective lenses so you can read a book, because a book has to be closer to your face. It can't be far away like this, and then you're straining your eyes to read. So corrective lenses will help you read a book when you are farsighted.
And the second example is the most common eye condition that young people have is nearsightedness or short-sightedness.
Those are all of the 15 phrases for Conversation 14. And now that you know them, go back to the conversation and see how much you understand now. Also, try shadowing along with that conversation to really help embed these phrases in your head. Another good idea is to practice with these phrases, make your own examples, and say them out loud, making sure that you don't forget these.
And in order to keep us motivated to continue producing more content in order to help you achieve your English goals, please make sure you like this video, you give it a thumbs up, and also subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out any of our future videos. And that's it for today. We hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye.